Nobody knows, or seeks not to know, the hurt that the father had inflicted upon his daughter. But hurt there was. Now the father stands atop the sheer cliffs above the small bay, with the young woman struggling weakly in his arms. Her heavy, heavy heart is all despair. He flings her over the cliff. She falls down, down, down into the bay. And with a heart so heavy, she sinks down, down, down to the bottom of the sea. For a few moments before sinking into unconsciousness, she feels the despair and desolation in her heart. Time passes. She lies at the bottom of the sea. Her honey flesh turns grey. Ravenous sea creatures feast upon her. Crabs crawl over her body, sinking their pincers into her flesh. Her bones are picked clean. Her golden hair drifts away upon the tide. Time passes. She is without sight, without hearing, without taste or smell, without touch, without memory. All that is left is the feeling in her bones, which serve for sight and senses. And where her heart once was, there is a heavy, heavy hollow. Time passes. She adapts to the rhythm of the waves, forever rocking backwards and forwards. She adapts to the rhythm of the tide, forever shifting this way and that over the shingle. The fishermen no longer come to this bay, at first out of respect and later out of fear, for it came to be thought a haunted place. Many ages pass, until a fisherman braver than the rest, something of a loner, ventures into this bay, despite the talk of haunting and the dire warnings of the other fishermen. Yet there is an edge of apprehension in him as he paddles his boat into the bay, takes up his heavy rod, casts his line into the sea, and mounts the rod over the stern. The line goes down, down, down into the sea to the very bottom, where it becomes entangled in the woman's rib cage. The line tightens as she shifts across the shingle, and the fisherman begins to heave on the rod and reel in the line. He heaves and reels and heaves, imagining some great sea bass impaled upon his hook. But the hollow where her heart once was is heavier than he. Then, with the unfamiliar tugging and tightening of the line, she is for a moment distracted from the heaviness where her heart once was, and in that moment she rockets out of the sea and jams her bony fingers in the narrow eyelet at the tip of the rod. The fisherman falls backwards into the bilges and stares aghast at the apparition which has risen before him, her hand raised. In terror he grabs the paddle and paddles for the shore as fast as he can, glancing over his shoulder as he goes. But the faster he goes, the faster she follows, and the faster she follows, the faster he goes. His heart is hammering against his ribcage. His blood scorches through his veins like summer fire. But he does not escape her. As the boat crunches hard against the shore, her fingers become loose from the rod, and she falls, a heap of bones, into the boat. At the same moment, grabbing his precious rod and line, The fisherman leaps for the shore and pounds and scrambles and tears across the sand and rocks and fields and hedges and ditches towards his hut. But all the time he hears her behind him, crunching over the sand, scraping over the rocks, rattling over the fields. The hut gets nearer with its thick stone walls, dark peat roof and heavy oak door standing open. Heart hammering, blood scorching, he throws himself into the hut, casting aside his rod, slamming and bolting the door in a single movement and falling, thankfully, onto the hard earth floor. Time passes. His heart slows. His blood cools. He scrabbles around in the dark for tinder and flint to light the lamp. As the warm fingers of light reach out into the furthest corners of the hut, she leans against the doorpost, staring at him through the sockets of her eyes. He cowers in a corner, as far from her as possible, but cannot escape those empty, staring eyes. They stare at one another. Time passes. She hasn't moved. She's done him no harm. His terror slowly gives way to curiosity, and he creeps warily over to where she lies. There he sees his line entangled in her ribcage. With understanding, his fear gives way to waves of relief. He crouches over her and looks at her for some time, tangle of bones. An unfamiliar feeling flutters in his heart, and with compassion he gently disentangles the line from her ribcage and tenderly straightens out her bones. Exhausted by fear and exertion, he sinks onto a pile of rugs, draws a thick blanket over himself, and falls into a deep sleep. Time passes. With the feeling in her bones, she knows the rhythm of the waves, the rhythm of the tide, rocking and shifting with the rhythm of the waves, the rhythm of the tide. She moves herself slowly over the earth floor to where the fisherman lies. She creeps in beside him, over the rugs and under the blanket, wrapping her bony arms around his chest and her bony legs about his thighs. The fisherman is a lonely man, and as he dreams of his loneliness, first one tear, then another trickles down his cheeks. The tears evoke in her feelings of thirst and hunger. She knows in her bones that she is undernourished. Laughter brings her fresh heart where the heavy hollow had been, and she sips the tears from the fisherman's cheek. As the tears nourish her, new flesh forms around her bones. First lips and tongue to sip the tears, a throat to swallow, a stomach to absorb, breasts and belly, back and buttocks, a soft creak between her legs, until she is made whole. She is made whole. Meanwhile, the fisherman has been dreaming of a woman with golden hair, honey flesh, firm breasts, and a soft creak between her legs. And in the morning, when he awakens, he finds himself entangled in the arms and legs of the woman of his dreams, with golden hair and honey flesh.